Hey, totally forgot my script ass facts here. I've finally been able to dabble in 308 gas guns or 308 semi-autos, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been something I've wanting to do for quite some time now, to really test out the capability, see how much it gives to me, see how much it doesn't give it to me, and how much it utterly destroys the bottom line on my bank account. In fact, that's probably one of the biggest downsides of the 308. Not necessarily the rifle itself, though there are many issues I'll get into as time goes on with some battle rifle POU videos. But it's the fact that the system seems exponentially or prohibitively expensive to get into. So with the fascination of the industry still now to this day, even with stuff like 6.5 coming out, there is some appeal to cheaper systems like this. Which brings us to the weapon of choice today.
Earl? My God, I always thought VTAC barricades were horseshit. Turns out they're based on an actual rock in Utah.
Barricade stops are useful!
So, enter the AM10 from Anderson, a semi-308 that checks a number of very unique boxes. First off, it costs less than $1,000. Oh, did I say several? No, it's just that one. It checks that one box. It's a cheap AR-10. So, $1,000 with tax, that's, you know, like a decent AR-15, or if you're a PSA fanboy, that's like 2 decent AR-15s with 6 magazines and a weird bottle opener. The AM10 lineup from Anderson are all in the ubiquitous LR308 pattern. Basically, DPMS came out with a rifle way back when, everyone copied their homework, and now it's generally considered the dominant pattern over the AR Stoner pattern. So technically, this isn't an AR-10, but it fits nicely within the AR-15, AR-10 dichotomy, so that term is often going to be used interchangeably. A quick gander over the website reveals an interesting naming scheme. We have the Silent Ranger. They're decked, and I say decked very loosely here. If you knock off all those extra goodies, keep the PRS light stock and make it 20-inch, you get the Marksman variant, chop 2 inches off again, back down to 18, replace the PRS stock with a piece of Tupperware, and you get what I'm reviewing today, Ranger. Take another 2 inches off, and you get, the exact same thing in a 16-inch configuration. And if you hate yourself, you can take the entire barrel off, and you get the Breacher or Sinus Clearer 9000. Really, they're all the same. This copious amount of 308 spending was sponsored by Venture Surplus, a location, as the name may very well imply, that sells surplus gear, either new, used, or issued at very competitive prices. Frankly, most of the stuff you can find on here is incredibly competitive with insert tactical company of choice. Now, that's not to say there isn't a place for this highly tactical gear, but sometimes it's nice to save a couple shekels here and there for battle-tested, usable gear. The critical component with surplus gear is to remember, a lot of this stuff comes and goes. They get one big large shipment, they sell it all, and that's probably the last time you'll ever see that piece of gear again. Head on over, go check it out. You might find something quite interesting. Honestly, it's kind of a dangerous website. I probably spend a little bit too much money there. Regardless, thanks for sponsoring this video, Venture Surplus. Back to the 308 nonsense. So what exactly do you get for your odd $1,000 or so with the Anderson Ranger? You have a basic AR-10 or DPMS pattern receiver. I mentioned that already. For the trigger, most models will come with some standard mil-spec trigger. The nicer ones will come with a Schmid $60 aftermarket trigger. Mine didn't come with it. I put it in anyway. We got a Schmid trigger in here. Honestly, my go-to recommendation if you need a trigger or a budget trigger, or really just any trigger in any rifle. Beyond that, you'll have a standard safety selector. I put a ambi safety selector in here because I was thrown off a cliff when I was younger, and now I'm left-handed. Basic K2 grip, nothing wrong there. Standard receiver set. As you come rearward, you have probably my biggest complaint of parts choice on this rifle, and that's the MOE stock. I get trying to want to save money, and this is a budget line rifle, but really the MOE stock belongs firmly in the camp of you're going to throw it away at some point. Charging handle, as you'd expect, is the LR308 style, so you can get a longer one if you'd like. I kept it mil-spec, wanted to keep the cost down. As we move forward, we see actually fairly smart choices. In a lot of these budget AR-10s, we notice manufacturers tend to remove a shitload of mass off of the handguard in a vain attempt to keep that weight in the realm of non-insanity. Anderson did pretty well here by keeping a full-length handguard system throughout the entire length of the rail. There are major cutouts that are perfectly positioned to remove your fingerprints in the event that you quickly need to remove any identifying features off of your body when they discover that you still have the pistol brace on
on your rifles. In general, I wish these were a little bit smaller, but they get the job done. And when you consider the fact that this is probably one of the more capable rail systems in the budget categories, you can't really complain there. We got the usual friction, you got the usual friction fit handguard, but that's basically industry standard at this point. Beyond that, there's really not much to say here. It comes with this weird, odd, bargain bin flash hider. It's not quite an A2. It's not quite anything standard, but I took that off, immediately put this FCD muzzle brake on here. It has managed to do absolutely nothing. Not only have I forgot to ever put my suppressor on this thing because I can't get the end cap off, it's not really providing any recoil mitigating effects. If you're curious of how I have mine set up here, like I said, ambi safety. I think this is a Daniel Defense one I got used. We got an ambi mag release. Once again, remember, I fell off a cliff, maybe that cliff right there. A little bit of Scotch tape. Put a Halsun LS321 laser up here with a goon flashlight up front. I'll talk about this in an upcoming video, but basically think an HLX with more candela on it. And beyond that, I kept it fairly simple. As you can see, this is very much a battle rifle style configuration where the goal is to kind of set up, a standard AR-15 rifle, but it happens to shoot 308, which is actually, I think, probably what these guns are really going to excel at. Oh, and the optic is my PLXC, my beloved.
I used to speak proper English.
And then I met Brass Facts.
This fucking guy. And he was like, Hyperbole. And I was like, God damn it. The Super Bowl, you European fuck.
Okay, so that's great and all, super cool, whatever. How'd it do, right? That's the ultimate question. When I grouped this, I did 8-round groups and got fairly good groups with the normal ball 168 grain and slightly tighter groups with 168 grain and 175 grain match ammo, both of them performing very similarly. You can see it right here. This was shot with an 8x LPVO with no parallax adjust. I'm also an ADHD crack addict, so I tend to get impatient in long strings of fire. So go ahead and I'm going to say this gun is roughly around, a 1-inch gun, maybe a 1.5-inch gun. And then obviously better if you get literally any other shooter than me. This is actually incredibly impressive. Most of the, mid-range sub $2,000 308 guns I've tried, and there's been quite a few, are very picky with ammo choices. Some of them will group as you would expect, and some of them are like a shotgun shit show disaster at like 50 yards. So having this group consistently across the board, very welcome surprise, especially with one of them being FMJ.
So at this point, I'd love to say, yeah, it's an Anderson, the rifle doesn't work. Or I'd love to say, hey man, this is one of the most standout budget LR308s on the market right now. Unfortunately, we ended up somewhere in between. Let me run you through it, you'll see what I mean real quick. When I first got it, it needed a pretty hefty break-in period, 300, 250 rounds. Every magazine, every other magazine, there'd be a malfunction, sometimes 2 magazines per malfunction. Ejection was sluggish. I made sure to lube it up, clean it, and try to get it back to a functional state quite rapidly, so it was getting a lot of lube. It was staying very clean during this period because, 308 was expensive. Once we got past that point, it really started to work quite well again, out to about the 500, 600 round mark. Hoplifile then came, no, his name is just Hop now. Hop came over from Oregon. No, why? I don't know why everyone thinks he lives in Utah. He has never. Comes over, we do a 4-day, 5-day battle rifle, thing. And unfortunately, the rifle just completely fell off the cliff in terms of performance. Reliability went into the floor. Probably 3 to 4 malfunctions per magazine as we were nearing the end of the trip. And it was so bad that we were getting the fabled 6 o'clock ejection straight back into my face. I don't even know how that's possible.
Oh my God.
When Hop left and I took apart the BCG again, we sort of figured out what the hell was going on. Turns out the entire BCG pocket area, right where the firing pin lies, was full of primers just wedged in there. And these were like depleted primers. So it turns out the firing pin is going way too far forward, punching through the primers, tearing them into several pieces, or just kind of hollowing it out. The primer then hopefully goes out the gun, but some of them are going up into the upper receiver, probably bouncing around a little bit, judging by some of those scratches, and then ending in the cam pocket and then wiggling its way to the rear of the BCG and wedging where the firing pin is this time. Cleaned it all out, maybe this was a fluke, went out to the range real quick, shot 60 rounds, and nope, primer's back into the BCG. So obviously this is a reoccurring issue. Upon closer examination, everything looked fine except the cotter pin that holds the firing pin in place, or rather from falling out the ass, and that was seriously bent. Might have been related, might have been not, I don't know. Sent it off to Anderson. Anderson immediately, of course, told me there was nothing wrong at all and they would send it back to me. Curiously, they sent me back a brand new BCG, put it all back together again, went out shooting, shot about 160 rounds, and ejection, perfect. No primers in the BCG, no primers in the receiver. I'm noticing no issues whatsoever at this point with the new BCG, and ejection looks perfect, right off to the side. So to answer that question earlier, can a budget, read about $1,000 or so, 308 semi-auto be done effectively? Unfortunately, it seems not quite yet. Every single attempt we've seen seems to come up short. The monkey paw of budget choices seem to dictate a rifle needs a bunch of attention after purchasing, or the gun is fine, but since it comes from a budget company, ends up being a coin flip in terms of reliability. The recent SFAR is right on the line of pricing, while having a seriously cool ability to function with many different AR-15 components, but it is somehow both unreliable and sort of incomplete from the factory. Hop's SFAR has been sent back to Ruger multiple times. They don't know how to fix it. They don't know what's going on. He basically had to replace half of the operating system to fix it. The Aero M5 has similar variability, though not because it's a bad rifle, it actually seems quite good as far as I can tell, but because you can't actually buy a complete M5, and some of those also end up being semi-unreliable. It's also quite expensive compared to the other budget optics, depending what you do. It's basically a build kit. Now, you can buy a tried and true M&P Sport, but they're, like 99% of you are going to replace the entire front end of the gun. The new PSA Sabers seem promising, but a lot of reviews seem to indicate, maybe wait for a Gen 2 in another year. The 308 Sabers are not off to a promising start. So, boom, we're back in the land of coin flip reliability land. We can look at, some of the mil-spec options, and those used to be the go-to in the 308 category, something like a PTR or maybe a FAL. The FAL's ludicrously expensive, and the PTRs are also actually getting up there in pricing. And honestly, most of them require so much attention after purchasing that you're better off just buying something like a 716i. The AM10 is in a similar boat to, the other ones. Probably the smartest configuration, budget-wise, for the bunch, ready to rock and roll right out of the gate, but the monkey paw must be satiated, and let's be real, this is an Anderson, so of course my first model was a shit show. Fortunately, the fix was pretty simple, new BCG, and now it's working great. So unfortunately, I can't say the AM10 is the standout budget option here. It just sort of seems to be a option, maybe one of the better ones. But with the lack of reviews on the internet on this thing, it's really hard to tell if mine was just a one-off or more of a consistent thing that, everyone's going to experience. Who knows? Okay, that's been some brass facts for you. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. It was a fun journey. It was a painfully expensive journey, but we got there in the end. That is the AM10 from Anderson. If you enjoy this type of content, I don't usually plug myself, but consider heading over to Subscribestar. This is obviously ultimately mostly funded by viewers in some form or another, so if you want to keep the Brass Facts project going, you want to feed my dog, head over there, drop me $1 or $2. Your tip is greatly appreciated. Outside of that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.